Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my Phantom Thoughts. We'll start this episode kind of like I started the last episode with just some random things that caught my eye in the RPG space over this last week or so. Starting off on the Bundle of Holding website, they've got two collections of Pyramid Magazine from Steve Jackson Games. The description says the articles in them are designed to be very generic, but they're also kind of targeted toward the Steve Jackson's GURPS system. There's two collections. They're $19.95 each, and they each have one has 60 and one has 62 issues. It's about 10 years worth of magazines. There's also a GURPS 4E Essentials bundle. So if you ever wanted to get into GURPS, PDFs for a lesser price than what you would pay on Steve Jackson Games, now would be a good time to get into that. There's a Dark Eye Mega collection. The Dark Eye is, my understanding is it's the most popular role-playing game in Germany. There's also a collection called Cawwood Monsters. I believe it's Cawwood. It's Cawwood. I don't know too much about it. This is the first time I think I've heard of this particular company, but the covers are very evocative. So if you like monster books, if you're somebody that likes to collect monster books, then this might be a bundle for you. And then lastly, the one that seemed the most intriguing to me, I'm not kind of in a buying mode, but if I were, I would probably get this. It's called Broken Tales Bundle, and it's a tabletop fantasy role-playing game from an Italian game publisher, World Anvil Publishing, and apparently it's where it's kind of flip-flopping the roles of, I guess, famous characters in fairy tales, where the savior child asks the king of fairy tales to redeem and reform villains like Bluebeard, Baba Yaga, the Queen of Hearts, Krampus, the Boogeyman, and the Big Bad Wolf. But the one who plots in shadows corrupted the child's wish. Yes, the villains became good, but any light needs a shadow, and in turn, the heroes became evil. So kind of flip-flopping the roles, I guess, of characters that we know from fairy tales. But that's all I know about it. In the blogosphere, on the From the Sorcerer's Skull blog, there was an article just published called Ozum Revisited, a combination of Oz and Barsoom from the Edgar Rice Burroughs tales about John Carter of Mars. And there's just it's kind of a description of what this would look like, what this is. It says it's kind of the original version of the post appeared in 2018, so it's just something he's revisited. I found it kind of evocative, just the description was pretty cool. Grognardia has posted a blog entry called The Shape of Heavens, the Shape of the Heavens, in which he ponders upon the virtues of the seldom used D10 die. So I found it interesting and, a little humorous as well. It was pretty cool. And the last one was from Solipsist Gaming, and it's called World Building via Letter Tiles Intro Solo RPG. So this was a brainstorming session, I guess, resulted in him creating a method using a customized version of a Scrabble board and Scrabble tiles to help in world building. And reading through it, it sounded really interesting. It's something I may have to play around with a little bit. I kind of really like kind of the looks of it. I'll probably have to print out his, his specific board that he made for it and have some letter tiles and see how it works for world creation. It looks like it's going to be the first part of a series because it does say intro, so there'll probably be more to it. But it's a pretty interesting idea, and it was one of those things that say kind of gets your brain racing. So something that I thought I would pass on. And links to all these things, all the bundle of holding bundles, as well as the blog entries, will be in the show notes. So the, I guess, main topic of the podcast here is using silver instead of gold, a silver standard instead of a gold standard in your fantasy RPG. Now, I listen to some live play podcasts, or at least playthrough podcasts where people play through the game and turn it into a story. And also, I watch some on YouTube every once in a while. And it seems like this past week I've run into several, and this is something I've seen before, and also in some blogs as well that give summaries of sessions, where instead of talking about the gold that the characters found as part of the treasure, they're talking about silver in similar amounts to what they were doing. And I've heard before people talk about doing this and intentionally doing this and why they switched. And I couldn't think of, off the top of my head, a specific video or podcast where the person was talking about the why. I basically had been triggered by just people doing it. Well, not triggered as in angry, but triggered as in thinking about it. So I tried to do some searching on the web, and I came up with a couple of blogs where they talked about, it seemed like if you had a gold standard, there wasn't any use for copper. And that kind of puzzled me because I've always thought of copper as it's kind of the dollar equivalent of RPG currency in most RPG campaigns. One of the things I don't like when I'm, in fact, listening to actual play podcasts and video blogs is when people price items that are kind of common everyday items, and they're particularly food, or if it's a shopping episode, and they take regular common everyday items and they're pricing them in gold. Like, why is this particular food item 25 gold? Really? So I went to the AD&D player's guide to see if I was kind of off kilter in the way I thought things were presented in terms of cost. So there's not a lot of things on the list of under equipping the basic equipment that are in gold, in copper pieces, but they are things that are pretty standard adventuring and dungeoneering, particularly standards. Torches are 1 copper piece. Iron spikes are 1 copper piece. A 10-foot pole. A 10-foot pole is 3 copper pieces. Sacks. A small one is 10 copper pieces. A large one is 16 copper pieces. In the livestock section, all 3 of the birds that are listed, chicken and pigeon and songbird, are listed in copper pieces. You have a pint of beer. A pint of beer is listed in copper pieces. And other items that you would consider common items, they are listed in a few silver pieces. So, for example, virtually all of the clothing is listed in silver pieces, except for a couple. High soft boots, low hard boots, and a broad girdle are all listed in gold pieces, but that's it. Everything else, caps and boots, belt, cloak, hat, robe, they're all listed in silver pieces. Most of the other provisions besides the small pint of beer are listed in silver pieces. A merchant's meal, or a pint of ale, or a pint of mead. Wine are listed in silver pieces. Horse meal is listed in silver pieces. And then other items that you would expect to be a little more expensive, yes, they go on to be gold pieces. Incense, or holy water, or a lot of the tack and harnesses that you have for horses. Although some of those are listed in silver pieces as well. A saddle blanket is 3 silver pieces. A harness is 12 silver pieces. So it falls in line from this list. I think it's probably where I got the thought in my head that the copper piece is the dollar, which would put a silver piece at a $10 bill, and a gold piece is basically $200. And so those ever so valuable platinum pieces would be $1,000. But I know I've heard in the anchor sphere of podcasters, somebody talk about the silver standard. I don't remember who it is off the top of my head, and I'm sorry for that. Where the silver is kind of the cash that people are finding most often in these dungeons, and that they are used to buy the more expensive items, whereas the copper is used to buy sort of the lesser value than that. And then through the adventures, like if you bought a published adventure, you would convert all gold piece awards to silver piece awards, and silver pieces would be the standard for earning XP. Instead of doing gold for XP, you do silver for XP, if that's how you're doing XP. And I think some of that is that in, historically, silver was more of the coin of purchase for buying more expensive items in history. But if you're talking about in a fantasy realm, and particularly with adventurers, to me it makes sense for the more standard coin to be gold and the lesser standard coin to be silver. And yes, copper has uses for folks who aren't adventurers, because a lot of the lower cost, lower quality items that they would buy on a regular basis, because they're scrabbling to survive, would be done in copper pieces. So am I off kilter here? Is there some advantage I'm not seeing? Is the monetary structure in AD&D that different from other RPGs that folks are playing, that it makes more sense to have silver be kind of that top shelf, and then have gold be rare and have platinum be even rarer? Call in and let me know. As always, contact information is in the show notes. And now, more from my solo AD&D RPG campaign, Tales of the Dragon Slayers. So we've got another pretty quick one here. We've got another encounter out in the wilderness between two groups. This is the Iron Bashers hobgoblins, who were part of the first coalition of creatures at the River Keep, and eventually found their way to a abandoned hamlet. And the Knights of the Green Hills. Now, the Knights of the Green Hills were a brigand group. They appeared early on in the campaign and ended up attacking a group of nomads, desperate for gold, but desperate for treasure. And they virtually got wiped out. One cleric escaped, and he had managed to collect on some ransoms and had reconstituted the Knights of the Green Hills, and now they're kind of exploring this area, I guess. And so they run across this hamlet that the hobgoblins are in. Now, the hobgoblins have only been in this hamlet for about a day or so, so there's not really any sign that it's occupied. They haven't had a chance to convert it into a proper above-ground lair. And the reason I say that is because they rolled surprise. They surprised the brigands. So the brigands were surprised for one segment, and since this encounter is at the lair of the hobgoblins, and they'd only been there for about a day, they hadn't had time to convert it. I ruled this that the hobgoblins saw them coming and basically set up an ambush. So the knights only saw a chance for maybe some unguarded loot, and then a chance to rest before either moving on to a raid against the Verbeegs, who are kind of in this area, or maybe returning to their own base. So, in the surprise segment, having assembled in the town square, the brigands are released by their leaders to seek out any treasure left behind by the former inhabitants, but told not to set fire to the place if they wanted to sleep under a roof tonight. The hobgoblin arrows struck without warning, killing one of the guardsmen and hitting others as well as getting hits on all of the casters among the leaders and several horses. This group of brigands has a couple of clerics and a magic user. The hobgoblins group, part of the hobgoblin group that was armed with morning stars, go after the few horsemen among the regular brigands that have chainmail on, killing 9 out of 10. Hobgoblins with spears attacked the mounted brigand spearmen, killing 4 and wounding their fighter 4 leader. And the polearm wielding brigands They're wielding glaive arms and killed 2 of those and wounding their 4th level fighter leader as well. A small group of the Iron Bashers armed with broadswords killed 4 shortbowmen and injured their 4th level fighter leader. And the bulk of the hobgoblins armed with Volgs, I believe is how you say the word. It's Voulges. It's a type of polearm. Challenged the main group of brigands armed with falchion swords. 13 of the brigands were killed, and 3 of their 4 third-level fighter leaders were injured. The hobgoblin leadership, with their guards and accompanied by their lair defending carnivorous apes and an allied troll, took on the brigand guards. All 6 of the guards were killed. 3 of them were torn to shreds by the apes and the troll, while most of their horses were bloodied as well. A second group of arrows, the hobgoblin bows at the end of the surprise segment round, targeted the brigand leaders and casters, who had so far been mostly in the eye of the storm, injuring Silver and nearly killing the magic user. So in the first round of regular combat, the hobgoblins won initiative 4-3. So another group of arrows was fired off at the brigand leadership. Most of the shots pinged off of armor and shields. One finds a chink in the armor of one of the 5th level fighters, and the magic user falls off her horse looking like a pincushion dead. 3 hits out of that group of arrows. Some of the hobgoblins armed with morning stars finished off the mounted sword-bearing brigands, while the rest attacked a group of mounted crossbowmen. 4 of the crossbows were killed, and their 5th level fighter leader was severely wounded. The hobgoblin spears attempted to swarm the remaining mounted spearmen and pole arms of the brigands. 3 of the remaining 7 spears were killed, and their leader was injured again, and 3 of the 9 glaive arm wielders were also killed. 3 more brigand shortbowmen fall to the hobgoblin broadswords, leaving only 2 left out of that group, and the Volgs savage the brigand footmen, killing 16 and one third level fighter, while injuring 1 of the footmen and the other 3 third level fighters. The apes attacked the 2 5th level fighters and 2 6th level fighters, screening the brigand leaders, killing 1 of the 5th level fighters and the horses of the other 5th level fighter and 1 of the 6th level fighter. The other 6th level fighter, the one still mounted, is also injured. Several of the hobgoblin guards engaged these fighters as well, enabling the remainder of the guards, the sub-chief, the chief, and the troll to attack the brigand captain, lieutenant, and clerics. Those guards that also attacked the screening fighters killed the 5th level fighter whose horse was killed, and injured the 2 6th level fighters further. A couple of hobgoblin guards attacked each of the clerics. The 6th level cleric, who was the original cleric from the original iteration of the knights, was unharmed, but the 4th level cleric was killed. 2 guards and the hobgoblin sub-chief faced off against the brigand's lieutenant, and his horse is killed and he is injured. And the hobgoblin chief, 2 guards, and the troll attack the brigand captain. Only the troll makes any hits, but is able to inflict some damage on the brigand captain. Now, at this point, it would be time for the brigands to respond, but they've suffered such incredible losses that they would fail any morale check miserably. I considered giving the leaders of the brigands a chance, but doing the calculations, they would also fail any kind of morale check drastically, enough that they simply surrender. So it's enough to simply say that the remaining brigands surrendered to the hobgoblins at the end of this one-sided fight. Now, these 2 groups started basically even in numbers, roughly about 120 each, not including maybe the leadership. If you include those, probably in the 130-140 range. The brigands would seem to have had an advantage going in, being that they have groups that are mounted. So, of course, after a round of combat, the horses are also involved in melee combat, and having actual magic users, magic users and cleric casters available to them. But surprise rounds are a pain, man. the regular brigands, there's only 39 left out of, like I said, well over 100. And then the second level guards, there were 6 of those. They're all dead, and even a couple of the higher level fighters got killed. And of course, one of the clerics, the lower level, 4th level cleric, and the magic user were also killed. Of course, the hobgoblins will probably take whatever they see of use off of them, searching bodies, searching people. Now the 6th level cleric does still have some of that dusted disappearance left from before, and they are just in little packets, some of them and stuff. So there's the potential. I haven't rolled any of this up or decided how to do so. There's the potential that he could end up with some of that still hiding on his person, and that maybe at least the leadership could escape at some point using that when the hobgoblins have their guard down. But I think given that the hobgoblins have just moved into this hamlet, are going to try to turn it into probably a walled, more fortified lair, that probably these brigands are going to be put to work, probably more work than some of them have ever done, other than moments of combat in the line of their brigandry. So that's it. Another quick one for this week, and we'll see you next time.